April 2025 soul story. If you have a sun, rising or moon in the sign, this is your reading. It's Romy here. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel. We're going to open up this month for you with the energy of the Fool. So the beginning of a new astrological year, and you're certainly gearing up to take an important next step. You're going to find this month that you've got more courage, and even if you still don't have all the answers, and even if things still feel a little bit messy, it can still be messy and brilliant, messy and perfect, messy and magical. You know, the key is to have some grace and compassion, but mostly this self-trust that you are actually navigating through this transition and you are being guided and protected in that reality. There's a lot of new energy coming in, and that's also going to be very helpful, because as you sort of straddle the old life and the new life, the old way and the new way, the old you and the new you, that can get quite exhausting, right? When you're trying to sort of hold all of these versions of yourself. So from an energetic perspective, the cosmic boost that comes in April is going to be really appreciated and welcomed by you. Now on the 3rd, Venus is conjunct the North Node, and I just feel like Venus in your sign is going to just bring something to the forefront of your conscious awareness, and it's really empowering. And you know, maybe you're just going to lean into it as feeling like it's such an important sign, or you just feel an energy, a presence, an awareness. And you know, it sets you up really beautifully for that first week in April. We have some harmonious days, the 4th and the 6th, which are going to be super helpful when you are just trying to prepare yourself and get things in a place where you know that you need that information. You know that you have to have these things available to you in order to take the next step, right? So it's going to be super helpful in just knowing what it is that you need. And then on the 7th, Mercury is direct in Pisces, right? So where you've been struggling to be seen or to articulate or express how you feel, or for people to really understand and appreciate where you're at, there's a shift that is coming in, and people from your perspective will feel like they're more understanding or more supportive or leaning in more to try to almost like return and revisit some of the things that have been discussed to get a better understanding. So that also is going to feel like a little bit of a breath of fresh air, and also a sense of relief. It's a very healing energy in April. Now there is still some friction, but that healing is almost like opening the opportunity to progress with something. Okay, now we have the full moon arriving in Libra on the 12th. The same day that Venus in your sign stations direct. So this retrograde will have brought up an awful lot. We do have a conversation astrologically at that full moon with Chiron creating a Kazemi. So there is a little bit of that vulnerability that you're still going to be feeling with the full moon in Libra, but on the whole, there's something really balancing. It's very cathartic, and the alchemist suggests that you're not losing your focus. Now, there is still a lot going on around you at that full moon, and it may feel that a lot is trying to grab your attention. But I think there's something within you that understands that actually the real priority and the thing I really need to be investing my time, energy, and attention towards is this. And when you do that, then you're working really effectively to transmute and clear something. And perhaps the thing that you're clearing has been weighing you down and, you know, invading your thoughts and affecting you emotionally for quite some time. And so it's quite an act of empowerment to kind of say, enough, I'm letting go of this. And to also realize that, you know, it's okay sometimes to feel the magnitude of your emotions, you know, even when they're overwhelming, because it's also the way that you are accessing almost like a new portal of energy and a way to be able to move forward through this situation. Okay, you have to bring light to the fear, you have to bring light to the darkness, you have to embrace the life that you've been striving for, by releasing a lot of the things that are holding you back from actually just embracing it, because it's right here. Do you know, there's so much that's sort of lined up at this moment. You know, if you could truly see it from a different perspective, it might feel really quite something, you know. It's almost like you can't see the wood for the trees in some area of your life. But we've got two major arcanas stepping forth here, and it tells me that already in April there's like these seismic shifts, and destiny, you know, with its plan is orchestrating things and moving you towards where you need to be. So I want to say to you, don't think about what is not done. Recognize what already has been done to get yourself in a place where you're really ready for this. Now on the 14th, Saturn is conjunct the North Node, which is a bit of a leveling moment, a karmic check-in if you like, but we also have Juno, the asteroid goddess, going retrograde in Scorpio. Now, Juno is the ruler of the 7th house of marriages, relationships, partnerships, and agreements. So a lot of what was discussed and talked about and reflected upon with Venus and Mercury retrograde is now being renegotiated. Now, remember with Scorpio, there's nowhere you won't go. And that can be helpful, right? Because it means that you're not afraid to bring things up into the light. It can sometimes feel a bit triggering by way of envy and jealousy. So these things can be sort of, you know, in the ether. However, it feels to me that that leveled conversation is just about you tackling the elephant in the room in a really big way. So wherever that's landing, you know, if it's coming in on the relationship side of things, or if there's some sort of agreement or legality that you need to address, terms and conditions that have to be improved upon so that you feel like you've got more expansion, more oxygen, more room to breathe, it really matters. Now your Queen of Wands brings in maybe a little bit of frustration, but also in a way that can be harnessed and directed. You know, we need to be mindful that this dominance of fire energy that comes in April can, you know, lead to a little bit of burnout, or it can lead to being quite impulsive or even getting angry from sort of zero to hero quite quickly. And it feels to me that it's during some of the renegotiation or looking over the terms and conditions that you might find on an emotional level you're, you know, struggling to kind of stay in a more grounded, leveled place. But you know what? Sometimes we actually need to say how we genuinely feel, right? And I also want to just remind you that you have to accept people as they are, right? But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't put them where they belong, okay? So, you know, you can identify in the specifics of those connections and relationships in your world, everything that you've been through, you know, what position they will hold for you, where the boundary sits. And again, I think this is a month where you've got a tremendous amount of courage and confidence to do things that are going to support you and serve you in moving forward. And you know, that might not be liked or appreciated by everybody, but it is going to be necessary so that, you know, you are giving yourself the best opportunity to really listen, and to sort of hold a clear, pure space to be able to understand what is being asked of you in your spiritual journey. Now, on the 15th, Mercury shifts back into Aries, and then on the 17th, we've got Mars in Leo. Now, it is a sort of second chance energy in April, you know, and yes, that could be interpreted from a relationship perspective if there has been distance, breakup, or challenges, you know, in any form of relationship, but notably romantic. However, it can also just mean second chances to go back to something that you'd began and initiated, or you were thinking about, and you know, you'd maybe been distracted, there were other priorities, or you just lost the energy, you know, when you just have that spark and then it just seems to kind of fizzle out. So there's a picking of speed, you know, picking things back up again, and that Five of Staffs is sort of charging forward. Now, yes, there might be a little bit conflict that you feel internally and maybe even externally as you decide on what now needs to be driven forward. Okay, so you might just need to push something through, which means maybe there's a little bit of argumentative energy or just sort of some passionate conversation, shall we say, in order to get something over the line or to just get something to the stage that it needs to be. April's definitely like a catch-up month, so if you felt like anything was delayed or wasn't where it ought to be, you're going to find that you can make huge leaps and bounds through the course of April. And you know, that fire energy can definitely give you a spark and some passion. You know, there are shifting tides happening hugely in this month of April. I don't want you to be put off or dissuaded if you think that other people are doing it or there's too much competition, or, you know, it's going to tread on somebody's toes. You know, there's that sort of feeling that's coming through for you while you're weighing something up, trying to deliberate, is this the right thing? Is it possible? And maybe even trying to make it work is also stretching you. But, you know, sometimes we have to be stretched. We have to go right outside the comfort zone. And it is a temporary experience, again, until we sort of fully step into what that new pathway and that new way of being is going to look like, right? So often things come together in very unexpected ways. We don't need to know every single step. We just need to know what the next one is. I think that's important so you don't feel overwhelmed. Destiny's already got this plan in motion, says the Fool and the Alchemist. It's down to you to just move through and navigate in some of these smaller blocks, whether they be thoughts that you're thinking or, you know, challenges that you're coming up against with other people or external experiences. Nothing can prevent what is meant to be, and I do feel that you're going to have that deeper sense and knowing within you. Okay, you are incredibly resourceful, but there might also be a firm focus in and around income, abundance, money as you're into your second house with Aries season in the first part of April. You might get some really ingenious, inspired ideas, even returning to some things that you'd previously discarded. But whatever your focus and attention is on, that Queen of Wands is bringing out some serious creativity and manifesting capability. And you'd be wise to really act on impulses this month, you know, take the steps, because oftentimes more information starts to flow as soon as we're like in the momentum. If you're just sitting in the contemplation energy, it's just like it doesn't really get the opportunity for enough energy to build so that you can get a clearer sense of what happens next or where you need to be or what you're thinking about. I do think as well, like, you are going to sort of have an important choice or decision that you need to make. And I do think there seems to be lots of other people involved in that decision. So you're really contemplating, you know, what is this going to mean, not just for me, but for others. Ultimately, though, I think in championing what you know is the right way forward, and you really got to trust yourself because it is, as the sun shifts into Taurus, you know, you've got an accomplishment here and recognition coming. And again, I feel like Mercury direct, you know, is super supportive of actually you receiving news, information, insight, and validation that perhaps you had misinterpreted because you either weren't given it or it got lost in translation or you just misunderstood it. So there's something sort of making far more sense and painting things in a much more positive light than you had previously thought also. Now, do remember that on the 20th, we've got Mars opposing Pluto. It's quite a volatile, clashing energy. Sometimes it can bring a little bit of an internal crisis point. More likely, you see things in the collective and then you're feeling the impact in some way, shape or form personally, whether that just be energetically, emotionally, or shift and change in your personal circumstances. But I do think that you have been preparing and are being prepared to navigate whatever shifts and changes happen. So again, it's a time where you can allow yourself to, you know, lean on some of the sacred tools that help keep you leveled, okay? But do be aware that there could be some other people around you that have a few more wobbles than you were expecting, okay? So, you know, you're not going to want to be white knighting all over the place. Of course, it's important to take care of the people that you love, respect, and, you know, are responsible for, but there's also a realization that, you know, everybody has to develop some of their internal resiliency at this time. And sometimes when we try to step in and do too much, then you're robbing them of the opportunity for themselves to be able to gain strength and go through the growth that is needed, in the same way that this is something that you are going through for yourself. Now, as we approach that new moon in Taurus on the 27th, you've got third house energy. I feel like there's a plan that's formed, but it's also one that you understand isn't necessarily going to work like in the long term. It might be something that's a little bit more short term, and that's okay, right? If you can bring a little bit of adaptability and be flexible, you're going to be able to really make the most of that new moon energy, and something can come in quite quickly, and then you get to sort of almost like bring the second part of the plan to fruition, okay? But you understand that the first initial approach might not be ideal. It's good enough though, And there's no judgment here. It's just like, this is where we're at. And you know, sometimes we want what it looks like, but we don't want to feel what it's going to feel like in order to get there. So there's a little bit of hesitation from you as well, of sort of seeing something really clearly and having the vision, but also just wondering whether you've got what it takes, or whether you're even up for sort of doing the work or going through the experience. As I said, there's courage and confidence, and there's also a reality check that actually, in a way, it's the only option, because returning to what was, or going back into something that you've worked hard to let go of or to move on from, you know, is no longer on the table. So, you know, we dig deep, and we you know, get focused, and we get super clear, and we take that bigger step. That's why that full energy is so present in this reading for you in April. So it's a super empowering month for you, actually. Like I said, there's a messiness to it, but messy is okay. You know, nothing needs to be, you know, showing up in perfect divine order yet, you know, because there are too many moving parts. And it's also, in a way, Pisces, giving you a chance to sort of catch up with yourself a little bit, because there are still some things that you're trying to work through and resolve in your own mind. So when Venus comes back into Aries on the 30th, again, there's this, just something dawns on you and it's just like, oh my goodness, why did I not do this sooner? Or, you know, why is it taking me so long to get to this realization? But there you are, you're there, you've arrived, and you know, you look back at the sort of month of April feeling incredibly capable in terms of what has been achieved. And also realizing that the conversations that you were brave enough to have been absolute game changers, right? The more you share, the more you express, the more you put yourself out there in April, it's making a really big difference. Now, if you're new to the channel, the last 3 cards I'm going to look at in the extended reading, you're going to find a link for that in the comment section below. I hope you'll join me. We talk for another 25 minutes. We'll look at a personal and a relationship card for you. I'm just going to go ahead and clarify these cards, see the direction we're going to take this. We've got the energy, the 7 of Wands, 3 of Pentacles. The Alchemist is bringing in 9 of Wands and another 2 of Pentacles. Now, please do check out my website, romywiser.com, if you're looking for a personal reading with me. All of my services are there. My sacred titles, right? You can work with my journal, my oracle deck, and my book, supporting you wherever you are in your spiritual practices. And then all of the other products and tools that I have available. The decks I use are also always listed below. Some pages coming through there. I like these. I feel like they're really opening up the conversation in a super important way for you. Right, let's have a look at Life Soul Vision Oracle. Okay, portals of possibility. Yes. Solstice, celestial stillness. There's our trust. The gathering. Vortex of boundless grace. And eclipse revelations. You'll still be feeling, you know, the arc of influence of that eclipse from March. You know, things will still be affecting you. So, you know, give yourself some grace through the course of this month. It's a different experience. It really is. It's passionate and grounded in its transformation. It's healing, but there is definitely still that friction. So tread lightly. Okay, what do we have here? Consequences, Ursa Minor. All right, we will explore that. And then finally, we're just going to look at an animal spirit guide for you for the month of April, Pisces. What do we have here? Oh, how beautiful. You've got the energy of the phoenix. That's a special one. Okay, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you on the extended, and I will catch up with you again next month.